Does Mikel Merino complete Arsenal's midfield? We're going to look at that a little bit by looking at the squad when we sort of take into account all the latest transfer news, rumours, and what it's looking like is going to happen between now and the end of August. Yes, I am here in the AFTV Madhouse. I've been lucky enough to come here to follow Arsenal on pre-season, and of course they face Bournemouth tonight, so we're going to preview that a little bit by looking at the potential 11 that Arteta could put out, but really sort of have a look at the squad and where Arsenal are in terms of getting everyone together in time for the start of the new season. But let's start with what we know around Mikel Merino. Now, there's so much information doing the rounds. Big up all the news aggregators keeping up with it, in particular Doc, who I'm going to give you a screenshot right here. What you can see here, he's got 5 points with different sort of reports from different journalists. I haven't actually even shown you the full tweet. He's done so well to sort of collate everything. Go and follow him if you want to go and read every individual source and what they've had to say on the deal. But I want to sum it up for you in this video, which is essentially 4 clubs are in for Mikel Merino. He's got 1 year left on his contract. The 28-year-old, 6'2" central midfielder, left-footed, who feels perfect for Arsenal's midfield. Why? Because a lot of people are saying he's a bit of a Granit Xhaka 2.0. We talked about that in the Goonerverse episode 4 with Lee, Judges and Elliot. Go and check that out. But what they're saying essentially in all this news is 4 clubs: Arsenal, Atletico Madrid, Barcelona, Chelsea. Now let's rattle them all off. Chelsea, apparently the project isn't where he wants to be. 28-year-old who's going to get probably his last big contract, is leaving Spain. Sociedad, where he's played some of his best football, just won the Euros. Chelsea doesn't feel a fit for him. They've just signed Kieran Dewsbury Hall, who's a left-footed central midfielder. I don't see the need for him. Chelsea, I don't think we'll get Mikel Merino, but you'd never write off Todd Bowley doing a madness. Barcelona, they're trying to afford Dani Olmo and Nico Williams. I don't see that happening. Take them off. Now, Atletico Madrid apparently have done the most up to this point to try and get the player in. They want Lenormand as well, the centre-back who's starting for Spain, and Real Sociedad. They want to try and get him in as well. But the big question is, can they get him and Merino in? And also, apparently Merino isn't that sold by the Atletico Madrid project. It just doesn't feel like, even though they've done the most work to try and get him, it doesn't feel attainable really for them, certainly not particularly quickly, and that leaves Arsenal. Arsenal, who need a number 8. We've got a load of 6s, we've got a load of 10s. We need a number 8 who really complements Declan Rice, Thomas Partey in that midfield, can play with both, can play with one or the other, and is going to add something that I think we lacked last season in terms of that perfect balance, you know, with Ødegaard and then the 6s that we have in our squad. He's a good box crasher. He gets goals from headers. He's, you know, makes late runs into the box. He's someone that would really complement the skill set of what we have at the moment. But is it going to happen? I'm starting to get this feeling that it's picking up. Remember when, you know, in these videos, if you watch them, you know I make predictions on these players. With Sesko, I just felt that really wasn't happening for me. I just didn't feel like it was on. I felt like he was eventually going to sign a new deal, and he did. Calafiori, been quite encouraged by since about 2-3 weeks ago. With Merino, I'm leaning towards the Calafiori stuff, which is that I think this is picking up with a view to it actually getting done. I think Mikel Merino, even though he's still got quite a few weeks of holiday left because of obviously winning the Euros with Spain, I think there's a good chance he could be an Arsenal player in a couple of weeks' time. But let's see. We'll keep you up to date with all that. Just to confirm via some other reports that he won't be signing a new deal with Sociedad. Confirmation there, and that Sociedad already looking at their replacement by targeting Javier Guerra of Valencia, 6'2" midfielder, I think, who they could be bringing in. Feels like a good fit and a good replacement for Merino. So let's see if they get that done. They're probably bracing themselves for the player to leave. Listen, he's 28 years old with a year left on his contract. He's going to get probably a bumping new contract at Arsenal, wherever he ends up. I just feel he's heading one way, which is for the exit. Let's just hope that exit leads towards Arsenal. Let me know if you want to know more on Mikel Merino. We'll be doing a breakdown on AFTV via an In Focus, and we'll look at some of his Football Manager stats on this channel as well, so keep an eye out for all that. But we did have a good debate on him, like I mentioned, in the Goonerverse episode 4 podcast with Lee, Judges and Elliot, where we actually debated whether he even really was a Granit Xhaka 2.0 and whether he did fit our squad so well. Go have a little watch of that in case you missed it. Now, another transfer news, James Benge letting us know that Eddie Nketiah is in talks with Marseille and that they are looking at a loan, whether there's an obligation or an option. I obviously hope it's an obligation. I don't want us to be involved in negotiations in 12 months' time, you know, in the same position. But apparently Marseille are sort of bracing themselves for other London clubs, the likes of Fulham, the likes of Crystal Palace, potentially West Ham, maybe coming in and trying to hijack the deal. We know that he was very linked to those clubs. We know that even 2 weeks ago, that's where we all thought he was going. And it looks like Marseille is still wary that those clubs might be keeping an eye on what they negotiate to get Eddie Nketiah out of Arsenal. So let's keep an eye on that. And Wolves reporter Liam Keane is saying that Dan Bentley could be staying at the club and that they got the opportunity to tie him down to a 2-year contract extension, which they could trigger. So Arsenal, who've been offering £50,000 and £300,000 for Bentley, Are they going to get him? Apparently Wolves want $1 million. He feels like a really good number 3 option, but it could be Hind that stays, it could be Setford that gets a promotion. There's a few internal solutions Arsenal could approach in terms of that third place, that third position in the goalkeeping ranks. So let's see. At the moment, Dan Bentley, who I thought would actually be signed in time for this tour, is hanging in the balance really. So we'll let you know what happens with that one. And I know you'll all be asking about Calafiori. I have nothing else to say. Everyone just keeps saying the same thing. It's close. It's going to happen. It's close. At some point, he'll fly out to the US, he'll do a medical, and he'll join the group. That's what I believe is going to happen. If I'm wrong, I apologise, but it does feel like things are moving ahead. The fees agreed with Bologna now. Let's just hope that Basel, Bologna, whoever else involved, get all those little details ironed out so he can finally join the squad and play a little bit of football out here in the US. Jorginho's back with the squad now, so you'd think, being an Italian player as well, he would join up and play some pre-season friendly football quite quickly. So where would all this leave the squad? Because we've been talking about a lot of different transfer news and rumours and reports. Where would it leave the squad in terms of looking like next season? Who's available to Mikel Arteta? Well, a brief prediction here tells me that this is what the squad could and should really look like come next season. I do think a third goalkeeper in the form of Hind, Bentley, whoever, will obviously be a part of the squad. I think Ramsdale's going to stay because there's no real suitors, and Calafiori I think will take Kivior's place because I think Kivior is ultimately going to get a move somewhere this summer. And then we've going to midfield. Merino comes in the left 8 to either compete with Rice or play alongside Rice because Partey has been unreliable with injuries. Jorginho doesn't feel like a first team starter as well as he did last season, and then Ødegaard and Vieira will be our creative midfielders. We do know that Smith Rowe has been heavily linked with the move to Palace, Fulham. We'll see what happens there, but I do think he's going to go. And that front line with Nketiah and Nelson leaving, yes, you got Nwaneri who could play. I didn't even mention Lewis Skelly who could play a part in this squad, but really I think we're going to add a forward of some kind to compete with Jesus, Havertz, Martinelli, Saka. The question is, what kind of player does that forward look like? Is it a wide player who can compete with Saka and out wide? Is it a number 9 and Jesus will play more minutes out wide? Let's see. But I think if the squad looks like that come the end of the season, I'm very happy personally, and like I mentioned, a few youngsters could play a part in that as well. Now in terms of the return for pre-season and actually having a look at what this team could look like, of course we do face Bournemouth tonight as I mentioned. Mikel Arteta's given some really interesting quotes in a recent press conference when asked about the return of players who went deep into the tournament, the likes of Saliba, Rice, Saka, Raya, who of course won it, Ramsdale was on the bench for England. Arteta said, I do not think they will miss the start of the season. Let's see what condition they come back in. All of the messages I've received from them is that they are really excited to come back and have a great season again. I do not expect anything else. That is really good news because having played football quite recently, hopefully they can get up to speed in terms of fitness quite quickly as well. You've got to manage their rest, but can you do that throughout the season as well? But in terms of that opening game, and yes, it's Wolves on the opening day at the Emirates, that feels winnable, of course, though you never write anyone off. It's the fact that we've got Villa, City and Tottenham as our first 3 away games that heaps a lot of pressure on these players to come back and not only be fit and available to play on the opening day, but be up to scratch and at their best to get wins at really, really big away grounds. That's where the pressure comes. Arteta saying he's expecting them to come back fairly soon and be available for that start of the season. Let's hope they are. What we do have confirmed, though, via AFC stuff is that Gabriel Magalhaes, Gabriel Martinelli and Kai Havertz will join the squad from the 25th of July, so the day after we face Bournemouth. They might get some action against Man United, but more likely they're joining the team to get up to speed with their fitness and then of course be available for Liverpool in Philadelphia. Confirmation of the travelling squad that is there at the moment is right here on your screen. Again, 4 goalkeepers, none of which are expected to play any significant minutes for Arsenal next season, and a lot of youngsters, 10 academy players there, but the likes of Jorginho, Partey, Timber, Vieira, big pre-seasons for them. So what could the 11 look like against Bournemouth? Here it is on your screens. I don't love it. They're certainly not a bad team. Hind in goal. White, Timber, Kivior, Zinchenko is probably the best back 4 we can put out at the moment. Ødegaard, Partey, I've gone for Jorginho in the left 8 position, but could easily be Fabio Vieira. Not a bad midfield. It's more the lack of depth we have in that area at the moment rather than a lack of quality. Of course, we are missing a bit of our spine with Saliba, Raya and Rice all missing. But then the front 3 of Nelson, Jesus and Trossard could line up. Again, you could have Vieira in that front 3. Nwaneri could easily play. He could play a mixture, being the first sort of televised pre-season game of the summer. There's a good chance he might mix in some youngsters and actually get them playing with a few different combinations. Nwaneri, Lewis Skelly could easily be starting this game as well. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Who will start against Bournemouth? What are you expecting from that game? When it comes to pre-season, I'm much more stressed right now about the individual performances and the likes of Vieira, Timber, Partey, Jesus, players like that actually showing us a lot as well in terms of what they can do in pre-season now and hopefully take it on to the start of the season. Of course, if you want want to know everything that's happening here in the Madhouse, go check out the AFTV vlogs where you can see behind the scenes everything that's going on. There is a tour diaries as well where we're talking about everything that's happening and all the latest Arsenal news we're covering there as well. But have a little look out for my shorts where if there's any breaking news, I'll just give you a quick 1 minute reaction to all the latest news as it happens. Catch you in a bit.